Todd. Todd never changes. Hello, Wasteland. You know me, my name's Mickey. I'm from the Fallout family. Huge Fallout fan, so I thought I would give a review of the Fallout TV show. I just finished watching the 8th episode last night. I let it all sort of seep into my brain, and I'm going to give you a close to real-time reaction as I possibly can. If I haven't said it already, we're going to be talking spoilers in this review. What can I say? Overall, pretty disappointed. The biggest problem with the show is that it just continues to give us the same thing that Bethesda has given us with Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout 76. Again, we are following a vault dweller who is leaving the vault to find somebody. Dad, son, overseer. We've seen this story. We've seen this story 3 times already. I understand that for people that are new to Fallout, that have never played the games before, that this is the first time dabbling in this world, this might all seem refreshing and fun. I don't see how, but I'll get into that in a second. But for those of us that are, longtime fans that have played all the games, and you have to remember, this show, the producers and Todd have said that this show is canon. So it's part of the same series, the same story that started with the original Fallout game in 1997. So it's not just this one-off thing that's in its own universe. It is part of the main game story. So for those of us that have already kind of been through all this already, we've seen this all 1,000 times. And that to me was the biggest disappointment. It gets even worse than that, because when Bethesda took over the property from Interplay set the first 2 Fallouts on the West Coast in California. And in the story of those first 2 games, we see the building of a new post-apocalyptic nation, the New California Republic. And that was interesting. We've already seen this wasteland story play out 1,000,000 times, with Mad Max, and we've just gone through 20 years of zombie apocalypse stories. So the guy running at you with football pads and a mixing bowl on his head coming to take all your stuff, it's not fresh anymore. To see it play out again and again in this series was pretty tedious. But the biggest issue is that the story is set in California, that they wanted to tell the story in California for some reasons, and I have my thoughts on that. But in the lore of the games, California has already kind of started crawling its way back to civilization, and the New California Republic is like a functioning democratic state. So Todd and company just want to give you the same thing over and over again, and so they just hit the reset button on California, blow the whole thing up all over again, and send it back to the Stone Age. Although in the games we see, especially in Fallout 2, we see where towns have grown up where there were no towns before. What we're shown in the aftermath of this second nuclear war is it just looks like the first one. It doesn't look any different. It doesn't look like anything new went up and was destroyed. It just looked like the same old buildings from what is now 219 years earlier, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The West Coast lore has pretty much been shredded. Shady Sands seems to now be in West LA, somewhere between Santa Monica and downtown. That was never the case in the game. Shady Sands seemed to have been much further north, probably closer to Bakersfield, or maybe even further north than that, out towards Sequoia National Park, or maybe even Yosemite. Shady Sands started up there. On the TV show, they've made Shady Sands pretty much the boneyard, which is what LA was referred to in the games. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The television show also treats the New California Republic as if it was just one city. We know from Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas that the New California Republic is quite huge. It stretches all the way up from San Francisco down to Baja California and out to Las Vegas. It's a huge territory with a population of about 1 million people. It's not 30,000 people living in repurposed nuked buildings just west of downtown Los Angeles. That's not what the new California Republic was. The fact that there are all these vaults everywhere that weren't part of the original story of the game doesn't make a lot of sense. You got 31, 32, 33 that are all in Santa Monica. Apparently you have a Vault 4, which seems to be in West LA somewhere. The earlier games had a list of all the vaults. You found them in a computer, and none of those vaults were listed. And, it's fine. You can retcon stuff like that. But hitting restart on what was established in 3 games just so you can make the world exactly like it seems in Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, it's pretty boring and not very creative. The wasteland stuff we've seen it 1,000 times. The kind of fictional apocalypse wasteland thing that Fallout started in 1997, well, by 2024, it's pretty old hat now. We've had 28 Days Later, we've had The Walking Dead, we've had a remake of Dawn of the Dead, and so many other post-apocalyptic properties. Since then, what does Fallout bring that's new to the table as a TV series? And I contend not much. My favorite character in the show and my favorite storyline in the show was the little brother. I think his name was Norm. He was just a real unassuming kind of cowardly guy who grew as a character. And what was going on with him, I thought was interesting. It was different. And whenever we were cutting back to that story in Vault 33, that's when I was paying the most attention. When we go back up to the surface, I started checking out. It wasn't nearly as interesting to me. The Brotherhood of Steel, I know Todd's got and when I keep saying Todd Howard, of course, is the director, the head of Bethesda Game Studios, and has led the Fallout universe since Fallout 3. He did not create Fallout. That would be Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky, who did that in the 90s. The game company that they worked for lost the rights to Fallout, and Bethesda picked them up. So since 2008, with the release of Fallout 3, Todd Howard has kind of been controlling the Fallout universe. And it's not been all bad. I have to say, Bethesda did grow Fallout into this huge IP that it never was when it was just these PC role-playing games. And the fact that it's gotten so big and been marketed so well, I mean, I can buy a Vault suit online and wear it. It's easy to participate as a fan in Fallout now, as easy as it is to do for Star Wars or anything like that. But it has kind of become a victim of its own success and its own trappings. And it's like, if you don't have these things, if you don't have the suits and the caps and the Brotherhood of Steel and the power armor, then the casual fans that jumped on starting in the mid-2000s, I guess they're afraid they're going to lose these people because, we have to dangle the old keys to keep the casuals interested. And that seems to be who the audience for this show is. Now, personally, I think they made a big mistake here because, I'm not going to lie, I am one of those New Vegas nerds. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite game of all time. I think it's just head and shoulders above the rest of the Fallout properties, with Fallout 2 being a close second. That fan base, the Fallout New Vegas fan base, is the most active, the most passionate, the most into the property. But my guess is that Todd and company were like, look, Fallout 4 was one of our biggest selling games of all time. We have to go after, that sort of storytelling. And it's like, yeah, Fallout 4 did bring in a lot of casual gamers, but they didn't bring in the passionate fans. And a lot of people, played Fallout 4 and then moved on to other things. The New Vegas people are still there. They're still getting together. They're still having these huge meetups in Good Springs at the Pioneer Saloon. Name me another game that's going to bring out hundreds and hundreds and possibly 1,000 people to some bar in the middle of Nevada. So you've taken the thing that those people are the most passionate about, and you've blown it up so that you can just recreate Fallout 3 and 4 all over again. Even though we're 219 years past the apocalypse and this stuff doesn't really make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense that the world would still be in the same condition that it was the day the bombs dropped in 2077, according to Fallout lore. Let's talk about some of the characters. I liked Lucy. I thought the actress was really great. I liked her character. Maximus, I liked him too. You know, he was a real kind of shifty guy. You never quite knew where he was, what he was going to do next. He was unpredictable. I thought that was pretty cool. Honestly, the main character I liked the least was the Ghoul, and only because he was just too much of an edgelord. He wasn't unpredictable at all. He was actually very predictable. You knew in every situation what he was going to do next. There was no surprises there. Anytime he was in a room, it was just counting down my watch until he killed everybody in it with, you know, some clever dialogue. Not that Walton Goggins isn't great. He is great. He played the part great. They just didn't give that character that interesting of a part. He was just your stereotypical wasteland badass, which, seen it, it's not interesting. The parts in his past were interesting, but flashbacks always kind of have diminishing returns for me, and the more you hit it and the more you go back, the more I start feeling like, okay, let's move on. We're spending too much time in the past. I want to stay on what's happening in the present. But unfortunately, what was happening in the present wasn't all that great, because what we got was basically a retelling of Fallout 3. Lucy has to look for her dad so that they can do a thing that's gonna bring a thing to the wasteland. And essentially we have this enclave scientist, which I'm not quite sure how that all works given the lore, and the enclave should be long gone by now, who was working on a cold fusion project, even though it looked like he was just experimenting on dogs, and he injected the MacGuffin into his brain. So Lucy ends up, you know, he gets injured along the way. Lucy ends up having to take his head to the person who kidnapped her father so that she can exchange the head for her dad. Wackiness ensues. The head gets passed around to different parties. And then we get to the final scene at the Griffith Observatory, which is set up very much like the Jefferson Memorial in Fallout 3. And someone's asking for a code from the dad. It all plays out very similar to what we've already seen. And then eventually we find out that the dad's a bad guy. He's been working for Vault-Tec all along. The TV show kind of hinges around that theory that's been floating out on the internet for a while. And I'm not sure if Bethesda planted the seeds for this or if it was from the earlier games, that Vault-Tec started the nuclear war. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because we're told that Vault-Tec is the richest corporation in America. Well, they're rich because they're taking government contracts and they're selling space to the vaults. It seems that's their business model. The business model would be to string this thing out as long as you can so you can keep getting in that money. Blowing everything up, where's your money and riches coming from at that point? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense once you think about it for more than a minute. So we find out that Lucy's dad is working with the bad guys, and he's a bad guy himself, and he gets away in Maximus's power armor and walks all the way to New Vegas, because apparently it wasn't bad enough that Bethesda trashed the New California Republic. They're gonna trash New Vegas next, and I guess really incense the fan base to the furthest degree that they possibly can. In fact, from what they showed in New Vegas, it looked thoroughly trashed already. It looked like a section of the wall had come down, and a little graphic over the credits. It looked like a lot of the casinos were in ruins. So it's like, well, here we go again. We're back. We're hit the reset button on that as well. You know, so what happened here? I mean, I can just go off the things that I've read in the press, and apparently Jonathan Nolan had an idea of where he wanted to take the story, and Todd nixed the idea, saying something to the effect that it's going to be taken care of in a future Fallout game. My guess is Jonathan Nolan, you know, grew up in Chicago. His brother, Christopher Nolan, you know, who did the Dark Knight series, a lot of that stuff was filmed in Chicago. Jonathan Nolan probably wanted to set the story in Chicago because it's a part of the country he knows very well. He grew up there. That's my theory. My guess is that Todd put the nix on that. Maybe that means Fallout 5 is going to be taking place in Chicago. And Todd was like, well, here you can have California because we don't touch that. Todd, you can always tell in interviews when people bring up New Vegas, like his face tightens ever so much. He looks a little bit stressed. You could see sweat beading across his forehead. He was probably like, yeah, just get rid of all this stuff because I'm tired of people asking for New Vegas 2. I'm tired of this game that was just meant to be a holding pattern between Fallout 3 and the release of Skyrim, getting all the accolades, called one of the best games of all time. It's overshadowing everything. It's overshadowing 4. It's overshadowing 76. And nobody cares. They want New Vegas 2. Todd was probably like, here's all this West Coast stuff. Just blow it all up so I can be rid of all this lore and not have to worry about it anymore. Just a theory, but Todd and Emil's fingerprints are all over this. They are producers on this show. Probably in an advisory capacity, but their names are there in the credits, so there's a lot of blame to go around here. The production looked great. Everything was kind of in that Fallout 4, Fallout 76 style, if you like that. And I like some of the artwork from those games. It's nice to see it in real life. But that's not enough for me. Just seeing something I know is not enough to set my heart ablaze. I need a good story with characters I really connect with. And here, after episode 4, I felt like I was kind of twiddling my thumbs and just waiting for the story to play out and kind of get to the point. It didn't feel like there was enough story here to take up 8 one-hour episodes. It did start getting a little humdrum and repetitive in those 3 episodes leading up to the finale. The T-60 power armor, I don't know, in real life, it seems a little cartoony. I think almost the armor from the earlier games, from 1, 2, 3 in New Vegas, where it's more like gear that one puts on rather than this mech suit, would have looked a little more gritty and realistic and less cartoony. It always didn't seem to make sense when the armor was powerful and when it wasn't. It just seemed like sometimes it was invincible, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes people could unload a full clip on it. Sometimes a roach could get into the suit and kill the wearer. It was all over the place as far as the capabilities of the power armor. Walton Goggins' character, the Ghoul, same thing. It just seemed like he was invincible. He almost came across like the Wile E. Coyote, just being thrown through walls and whatnot, and nothing seemed to faze him at all. So maybe there's more that we don't know. They did give us a couple of New Vegas keys to jangle in our faces. A lot of Sunset Sarsaparilla ads. We saw Mr. House. There was some Ranger armor, but it wasn't used in a military sense. It seemed like it was like surplus armor that some farmers, one of them played by Eric Estrada from Chips, was wearing. And it wasn't even the good stuff. It was the Fallout 76 version of the helmet, which, is kind of that round, bulbous looking helmet. It's not the same shape as the one from New Vegas. A lack of energy weapons I thought was pretty strange, especially coming from the Brotherhood. They did use those terrible Fallout 4 assault rifles, which I don't think anybody likes those things. We saw one laser pistol on the main antagonist, but I don't recall ever seeing it go off. So I'm not sure if that was like a budget thing, why there was no laser or plasma weapons, or if there's some other explanation that we're going to get in season 2, if there is a season 2. I've tried to avoid looking at anything after, because I wanted to formulate my own opinions. I'm interested to see what the reaction is to this, amongst the people that don't know Fallout and the ones that know it very well, amongst the New Vegas fans and the Fallout 4 fans. I know from Star Wars fandom that for some people just seeing the things, the vault suit, the power armor, the caps, just seeing that stuff is enough, and that's enough for them. That's all they want. That makes them happy. That's fine. I'm not gonna try to deny somebody their happiness. If this show gave you what you wanted out of a Fallout TV show, genuinely happy for you. I can't say that's true for me. In the end, my rating is probably, 5 out of 10. Good acting, good special effects, other than Kyle MacLachlan's, the CGI to make him look younger was kind of weird. Some of the set design was wonderful, but again, a lot of it's old hat. We've seen it before. Philly was just Megaton. None of this stuff really makes any sense given the lore of 1, 2, and New Vegas. So yeah, 5 out of 10, that's what I'm going with. This is basically the sequel trilogy, like the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but for Fallout. In the sequel trilogy, they had no fresh ideas. They just wanted to give the casuals back the Star Wars that they knew. And that's basically what's happened here. They didn't know how to deal with the lore. They weren't clever enough to work it into a fresh story. It's just, let's blow everything up. So the NCR is like Hosnian Prime. Vault-Tec is like the First Order. Lucy's kind of like Rey, and Maximus is kind of like Finn. And if at the end of this series, it ends almost just like The Force Awakens, where Rey is telling Finn, "I'll see you soon," while he lies unconscious. It's the same thing that happens here. Maximus plays very much like Finn, where he's this trooper that turns good. Yeah, here we go. You've got the sequel trilogy of Fallout playing out right before your eyes, and this first series is like The Force Awakens, which means I guess the next one's going to be The Last Jedi. Yay! At the end of the day, Bethesda, Jonathan Nolan, all them, they can trash the lore as much as they want. They can put everything, back into this wacky, caps are flying, power armor, Brotherhood of Steel, men running around in diapers. It'll never take away what happens here inside your head, because the great thing with role-playing games is that's really where the story's happening. It's like reading a great book. I've always compared New Vegas to like playing a novel, and it's like a great book, and the joy of it and the creativity of it and the potential of it all plays out up here, and that's something that a TV show can't ever take away from you. So you always have that. We'll always have Good Springs. We're gonna see you guys all there in November, and I think y'all know where I stand. NCR for life, baby. Curious to know what you all think. Please let me know in the comments below if you disagree with me, if you agree with me. It's all good. It's all opinions. Nobody's is better than anybody else's, so calm down. There's no use to get angry. And hey, got any mugs?